of the breaking news about Tom Thibodeau being let go by the New York Knicks. And I got a little intel for you about that. But first, let's talk about the facts. And the facts are is that the New York Knicks 3 years in a row lost with home court advantage. Oh, Madison Square Garden. The Garden's a garden. It's such a dangerous place. The opposition doesn't want to play in Madison Square Garden. Yeah, the Knicks really did not do well 3 years in a row with home court advantage. 4-10 in elimination games in the Tom Thibodeau era. And think about this, the first time in 25 years that the New York Knicks were able to get to the Eastern Conference Final, and they lost to a better team, the Indiana Pacers. And Thibodeau was let go today. Well, let me just tell you that even though that the Knicks have had back-to-back seasons, 50 wins or more, it's pretty great, from the Knicks standpoint. But keep in mind, there's no need to clutch pearls today, like I've been seeing on my social media today about, oh my God, I can't believe that Tom Thibodeau was fired. Frank Vogel's been fired. Mike Budenholzer's been fired. Mike Brown, Taylor Jenkins, Mike Malone. There's been a lot of coaches that's been fired out of nowhere, and these things happen. But I think that from the Knicks standpoint, I want you to think about this. You think about Tom Thibodeau, who was able to lead the Knicks the way he did the last couple of seasons. You would think, okay, well, they just need to add. Well, the problem with that is that the reason why the Knicks have been irrelevant since 1973, the last time they won a championship, is because of ownership and because of Jimmy Dolan. Jimmy Dolan, from people I talked to over the last, 12 hours or so, they tell me that there's no question that Jimmy Dolan was the reason why that Tom Thibodeau was out of a job. Tom's worked before. You saw him with the Chicago Bulls. And I just want to make sure it's clear. This is not one of those situations where Thibodeau cannot work with ownership or couldn't work with Leon Rose, the head of the New York Knicks. As a matter of fact, Thibodeau and Rose are very good friends, and they had a great working relationship. It wasn't like how it was with Gar Pax and Thibodeau, where Thibodeau's closing the door, locking himself in, just kind of locking in on the team and keeping management out. No, I mean, there actually was a good working relationship, but Jimmy Dolan got in the way, and that's one of the reasons why that Thibodeau's out of a job today. Hey, Thibodeau's going to have, $30 million left in his contract. That aside, he's out of a job again. After his time with the Bulls, his time with the Minnesota Timberwolves, and now the Knicks for 5 years, he's done. But I just want to just tell you that the reason why that Thibodeau is let go is because ownership. I don't know if Dolan is embarrassed by what happened, but I could say that the Knicks at least got to number 3. And you feel like if you're close, you could be able to add on and maybe beat the Pacers next year or beat the Cavs next year or whoever's going to be the top team in the Eastern Conference. That was not the case. The Knicks were run out of the building against the Pacers. The reason why the Knicks didn't win the series is because the Pacers are built so well, better, faster. The pace and space is a lot better, and they have roster depth. If you watch Rick Carlisle, the reason why that he was, spinning spinning Thibodeau around like a top and outcoached him. The reason why that was the case is because Rick Carlisle can bring a guy in for 4 or 5 minutes and just, provide defense. It's more than Tyrese Halliburton, which I think that you'll see in the finals here against Oklahoma City. But it's interesting that both teams are kind of built the same. It's about running, getting up and down the floor, putting up shots, going to the basket, and playing strong defense on the other end. And for Tom Thibodeau to be a defensive wizard as a defensive coach, that dog don't hunt, especially when you don't have the weapons. I want you to think about this. Mikal Bridges and Karl Anthony Towns and Brunson and Adenubi and Josh Hart, they are outscored by 31 points and 300 minutes in the playoffs. Outscored by 31 points, that particular lineup. So when I watch Karl Anthony Towns out there, I don't have anything against Karl Anthony Towns. I don't think that he's a bad player. I just think that he needs help. He's just not going to be a guy that can get it defensively. You would think with that size he would be, but that's when you have to add more muscle and more depth, because if Karl Anthony Towns is not going to defend, then someone else has to at the forward position. And then from Jalen Brunson, the same thing. Brunson is a hell of a player, but he can't be just the guy that's scoring the ball for the Knicks. and he needs to play off the ball some to get a little bit of a rest, mental break, a little physical break, so someone else can be able to score the ball. And that's a problem with this Knicks team. So a lot of this comes from roster construction. And Tom Thibodeau is a guy that I've seen for a long time that just gets it done by just the hard hat lunch pail, play as strong as you can defensively, hold the team to 105, 110 points, and then win the ball game. They couldn't do that against the Pacers because the Pacers have too many guys that can score the ball. So I'm going to give you my top 5 coaches that the Knicks should go after, and I'll tell you the aftermath of that, okay? So I think that the number one coach that they should go after is Jay Wright. Jay Wright's with CBS now. He retired from college coaching. And I remember Jay Wright being on Barstool saying that if I had to coach the NBA, I'd love to coach for the Knicks. He says, I'm retired now, of course. But I think that if you are Leon Rose, you pick up the phone and say, hey, do you want to coach some of the guys you coached in college at Villanova? Put him on the bench in Madison Square Garden, and maybe he can be the guy that can get your team over the hump. I'm not saying a championship, but imagine just finding that guy that can unlock the mystery of this team and get there. Michael Malone is available, and I know he'll coach again. And I know that he burnt out his time with the Denver Nuggets, but that guy has New York chops, and I think that Michael Malone will coach again. What about him with the Knicks? He's already got a championship. He has success, but again, how long would he stay in that job? Taylor Jenkins shouldn't have been fired at Memphis, and that's a guy that should be coaching again. Um, Taylor Jenkins, his offensive schemes are very, very good. Everyone I talked to around that Memphis organization were surprised to see him be let go. He will coach again. I think that that's a name for sure. I think Chris Quinn, who's been a long-time assistant with the Miami Heat, it's his time. I do wonder why Chris hasn't had a head coaching job yet, but he's been under the tutelage of Eric Spoelstra for a long time. I think Chris Quinn would be a good option for the New York Knicks. And Rick Brunson, who already is assistant under Thibodeau, Rick Brunson coaching his son. I think since he's been with that team, he knows about that team intimately because he's been assistant with the Knicks. So I think Rick Brunson's the guy. Now I can give you Mark Jackson and Jeff Van Gundy and bring in former coaches back. I just don't know if the Knicks are going to do that. But let me just make sure it's very clear. As long as Jim Dolan, guitar Jim Dolan, is the owner, it's going to be hard for me to believe that the Knicks are going to be able to get to the top. I know that Knicks fans love to be able to celebrate, you know, playoff victories and climb the pole and all that. That's all good. That's great. You want to celebrate that way, that's fine. I'm just know as a fan, I celebrate when my teams win a championship. I don't worry about division, but I know it's been a drought in Gotham. It's been a drought for a long time. But I'm just telling you right now that I wish I could tell you that Tom Thibodeau had a falling out with Leon Rose or management and they said that's enough. But I just want you to think for the Knicks, who's been in a drought for so long, first Eastern Conference final that they've been in 25 years, and Tom Thibodeau isn't good enough. Think about all the stuff that they've gone through, the Marbury years and the Eddie Curry years, and just the Emmanuel Quigley and all these guys that they've had over the last 10 plus years, but yet Tom Thibodeau's not good enough. I tell you what, I hope they can find their Steve Kerr to replace Mark Jackson or whatever metaphor you want to have, the next coach that could just be able to get him over the hump. I'm just saying that it's not even about coaching when you are the third best team in the playoffs this year. It's about personnel. Who's going to help Karl Anthony Towns? What other perimeter shooter are you going to find to go along with Jalen Brunson? Give me your comments below, your thoughts about Tom Thibodeau being let go by the New York Knicks. It's more than just the coach. It's personnel. Look at Oklahoma City and look at Indiana and look at teams that are on the come. You know what they do? They run fast and they shoot a lot of threes. They don't shoot 60 threes. You don't have to do that. They don't want, hey, all the teams are not the Celtics that can shoot 60 threes in a game, right? But ultimately, you have to have balance. It's not about super teams and getting Giannis and getting this guy and just what? How do you have balance across the board? Look at the two teams in the finals. Balance across the board, role players and shooters. Knicks don't have that, and I'm not sure that Jimmy Dolan will allow for the Knicks to be great. They tried, but they fell short against the Pacers. Don't forget nhschicago.org. That's where you go right there. Again, So glad they're on board at ESPN Chicago. And don't forget to catch me on the Captain J Hood Morning Show on ESPN 1000, also on the ESPN Chicago app. There's a scroll there on the bottom. Like, share, and subscribe. What I do on YouTube and also our podcast as well. Thanks so much for joining us. I'll see you next time. So long, everybody.